This is a much more speculative question. The development of three-dimensional space during the Renaissance was linked to the rise of science and the whole development and together. Now, why is it that at this point there is an emergence of a visual semiotic? I mean, what new ideologies are being formed, or is it being part of, or one new development is it being part of?
Well, I think it is the kind of explosion of cognitive sciences, which before were not felt to be that important, because it was felt that verbal language, as we mentioned earlier, that the meaning, like Saussure said, you have the sign is made up of a signifier and a signified, and the signified is a concept. But this is what is really challenged now in verbal linguistics, is that it's not the meaning, the content is not a concept, it is a person. What Grimmaus would call figurative elements. So then those perception, the result of our interaction through perception with reality, how are they constructed? You see? So all cognitive science now have been called upon to be inserted in verbal linguistics. So they try to speak about perceptual constructs. But in visual semiotics, we deal only with perceptual constructs on all kinds of levels. Tactile, motor, kinesthetic. So visual semiotics is a kind of a field where we're trying to describe and understand more what is perceptual experience. So verbal linguistics will have to go there because they would accept the idea that the words have a reference to perceptual, but how to understand the kind of perceptual construct. So you need then a kind of an epistemology of the perceptual world and also perceptual representations in the mind, because that's what it's all about also in verbal language. When you see my house is red, actually you refer to perception when you're talking about something which is in your head. So there are perceptual relations to object outside, but also the whole field of how mental representations carry on perceptual knowledge and how it is organized inside our head, which is not organized the same way things are organized in the world. So how is meaning? Then meaning is in the head. You need something to construct, something to deduce. If it's a perceptual nature, you will construct your meaning of a visual work, and also the sentence. Now we do agree on that now. You have to construct that knowing more about mental representations. But mental representations are made up quite a lot of perceptual elements, which behave, one should say, differently, as I said, in the objects of the world. So now cognitive science or linguistics are very, very much interested in studying mental representation. How do we not only represent the world, but how do we represent our knowledge of the world? It must be there somewhere, because we go to it when we speak. So how is this organized inside the brain? So it's biology and all sciences are called upon to help us to understand, because when we speak most of the time, we're not talking about reality, as I last minute. We're only talking about things which goes on in our heads, only mental representations. But how do they work? How are they interrelated? How come that they go that way? And how do they construct models of the world, and of ourselves, of human beings?
Is there any work done on the linkages and the mediation between the precept and the concept?
The percepts,
the percepts,
not the precepts. Percepts and the concept. Well, I would say that it is the feeling which everyone is working on, I would say now. When I mean verbal language, I mean Lakoff and Yakendorf, Grice, and all the others who are quite engaged in this in America. Certainly in Europe, they are less inclined to feel that there would be real interest in study perception. But I think they will have to go, because semiotics is a young science in gestation, and I think this is really now the turning point, where instead of thinking that verbal language could be defined that way. In fact, we have to enlarge. We certainly have concepts, but we also have percepts. We both have to be, as you say, have to be in interrelation. What are their relations? And well, it's still different. To give an example of what is, Langacker, who was here, I don't know if you remember to meet him, in his book in '82, you see, Foundations of a Cognitive Grammar. He gives the example, for instance, when you hear the word banana. Well, naturally, if you take the time and the trouble, you can find the concept of that. So it's, just think, I don't know how you would define the concept. But when you use the word, is it possible that you don't evoke in your head the image of something yellow, which has that form? Sometimes percepts are always evoked by words, and most of the time, some would say, it's mostly the percept, the image, perceptual image, which is convoked in the head. We don't take the trouble to go and see the conceptual definition of object as soon as we have a perceptual image. But perceptual images in our head are not easy to study because they're inside and they're mobile, fuses, but they are that with which we construct our discourses in our attitude. So we had to go and try to know more about these. And I think visual semiotics is involved in trying to understand how these perceptual constructs are in our head and how they correspond to what we see.
And also, given the dominance of the simulacrum and simulated experiences of the media and all of that, becomes extremely important.
To understand how it works. Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay.